Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Performing Academy's Friday Night Q&A series. I'm Haley Alicia Mason, Performing Academy teaching artist.
And I'm Rena Wilson, Executive Director and Co-Founder. For today's Q&A series, I'm so excited to bring you an Bay Area native and Emerson College graduate, Danielle Bowen. She most recently was seen in the national tour of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, as Betty and Marilyn, as well as being the understudy for Cynthia and Carol.
Don't miss our Live from the Living Room series, Sunday evening at 7 p.m., featuring some of our Performing Academy siblings, Charlotte and Mary Kay Irick, Sophia and McKenna Rose, Grace and Micah Cedars, Ariana and Kiara Glenn, and Rena's sister and amazing Performing Academy teaching artist, Jackie Wilson Scarlack, will also be joining us.
Renee DeWeese and I started Performing Academy in 2011, formerly La Marinda and Castro Valley Theater Academies. Our passion for the arts and our desire to build audiences and artists for the next generation is what drives us every single day. In order for us to continue offering opportunities like this Q&A series and our Live from the Living Room, we ask that you would consider donating to Performing Academy. We also want to remind you that Performing Academy continues to offer training through Shelter in Place. We have virtual training, and we just launched a brand new summer virtual training. So be sure to check out our website for all the things we have to offer you. Without further ado, we'd like to start our amazing discussion with Danielle Bowen. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for being here, and I'm just happy to be with you and see you again. For those watching at home, please know Danielle's a close friend of mine, and I'm very lucky to be associated with such a wonderful human being. So before we jump on in, can you just talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm an actor. I live in New York right now. I grew up in Mill Valley, California, and started performing when I was in middle school. I did the middle school play, which really just kind of got me into it. Played Miss Hannigan and Annie, my breakout role, and then I just started studying at ACT in San Francisco. And then studied throughout high school, and then went to Emerson for school, and then moved to New York shortly after that. And here I am.
I have to lead with saying Miss Hannigan is a track that I'm definitely going to need to see you in.
Yeah. It's funny because my parents, they were like, I was in 8th grade, and they were like, how did you know how to be intoxicated? Like, how did you know how to be a drunk woman? And I was like, I don't know. I just kind of like was watching people and tried to be like them. And my parents were like, is this acting thing a good idea? I'm not sure. But yeah, it was very fun. Breakout role.
Oh, and now here you are. Amazing. So I want to talk a little bit first about like your experience in Bay Area and like getting theater training from a young age. So I'm going to pull up, we have some fabulous photos that you so graciously shared with us. Is from your fabulous time in the American Conservatory of Theater Cabaret Ensemble.
Yes. That was, high school. Yeah.
Homefront.
A world premiere musical.
And so to you, what about your training in when you were younger inspired you to continue on with it into high school and college?
Yeah, I think just the community that theater has, it just being with all of those people who loved theater so much. I met some of my best friends at ACT. I still keep in touch with them now. Just being around those types of people just made me want to keep pursuing it. It was something that made me incredibly happy. And I knew I just wanted to continue to try and bring that happiness that I felt to others. And yeah, that was kind of it. It's a very simple answer. It made me so much happier than anything else. And I was kind of a shy kid, so to be able to be on stage and to feel confidence and that happiness and support from all of those people. I wanted to continue doing it forever.
Amazing. Touching back really quickly on cabaret ensemble and being part of that. So I'm sure you're looking at all these people and it's like immediately taking you back. But I think one of the really cool things about that experience is getting to for anybody at home who's not familiar with ACT's cabaret ensemble, it was organized by Craig Slate and Robert Brutt, and it was like you would do 4 cabarets a year where everybody would get up and sing a solo or two and a duet. Can you speak a little bit about the value of like getting up and just singing in front of people? And like, I know in cabaret rehearsals, we were getting up every week and singing in front of our friends as well as Craig and Robert. And how that experience can help prepare you for what you do later on.
Yeah. Well, it's super off the cuff. It was like you said, like it was a cabaret ensemble. So you just do, you'd have 1 or 2, maybe 3 songs, and it was just you and a mic and people sitting at tables like 5 feet away from you. And honestly, I think that's the hardest type of performing, when you can see everyone. And so having those skills and learning how to interact with the audience from a very youngish age, really it helped my confidence completely. Craig was super influential in having us do a patter before, which means you introduce the song, you tell us a little bit about why you chose it, and it was you would have a kind of a script that you could maybe riff off of. If you had a joke that came to you, if you felt the impulse to say something and make an interaction with an audience member, he like encouraged that. And that was really important to kind of build confidence in young performers, giving us that space to kind of say and do what we wanted with a script in mind, to not go crazy. But it was really, really great to have that foundation. And then later on, at Emerson, we did like pop cabarets, things like that. And that training came in super handy for that as well, because we had to put together like a whole pop, 10-minute cabaret that was ours. And we had to do transitions, think of jokes off the cuff. It's just kind of, it gave me a lot of great foundational work in interacting with an audience that was 2 feet away from you, and being okay with them being that close and them seeing you, and being okay with being that vulnerable.
Totally. And you ended up producing your own like one-woman cabaret show too.
I did. Oh my gosh. Wow. You know my resume. I did this summer. It was really fun. And it was kind of along the same lines of what we did at Emerson, which was, a 10-minute cabaret, but I just kind of stretched it out. So it was an hour at the Duplex, which is, like a small venue here in New York. And I had a 3-piece band, and I had my amazing friends help me with it. And it was about all the jobs that I've had to have in order to pursue theater, because as an actor, you are not always working, which is just how it is. And so in that time frame, I've had the weirdest, most zaniest array of jobs. Like it spans so many different categories of what I've done, just in order to be flexible, in order to make auditions, make rent, all that good stuff. So I was able to take what I learned from cabaret and school and kind of build my own show, just from that foundation that ACT and Emerson gave me.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely gonna come back to that later, because I know some hilarious day job stories. I want to share some fab pictures also from Emerson, where we met. So this is from, so actually going back one. This one is from Ordinary Days, if I remember correctly, which was a student produced show, right?
Yeah, Emerson is great. Emerson is an amazing school. It was especially amazing just because of all the student theater that goes on. There's so many groups. I think there are 5 or 6 student theater groups. And so they're constantly producing new works, student written works, and just regular, musicals. And so, and, straight theater as well. So, I was part of Ordinary Days in my junior year. And it was great. It was 4 of us, and it was set in the, a small black box, space. It was great. And we rehearsed, and it was all student run, student directed. But everybody has such a drive there, and everybody is super motivated to produce their own stuff. And that was especially fun because it was with all my best friends.
I remember watching it and just being like, it's really true that like when you're working with people that you love so dearly, like that camaraderie always shines through.
Oh yeah, it was the best. It was so fun. It was one of those things that like we didn't want rehearsal to end because we were having such a good time. It was
so
great.
Good.
And that music is so good. If anybody hasn't heard Ordinary Days, some great music in there.
Real tearjerker.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We also have from the fabulous main stage production of Merrily We Roll Along. And I think what's cool about Emerson and a lot of different, college programs is that you have, I personally also did a ton of student theater, but then you also have these incredible like Broadway budget.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, you can, in this picture, that's a wig. Like I know they literally like the resources that they have at Emerson is wild. Like they came in one day, they like took a sample, like they held up samples of hair colors and matched this to my hair color, and it blew my mind. They have such amazing resources there, and you get on one of the big main stages, which is 1,000 seats, and you get to you're in a real production. It's really cool, and to be able to have that in college. You were in Titanic.
It was the same thing. It was like they made all of our wigs by hand, and then I also was really lucky, and my costume was like made for
you. Oh man,
like
and then like the 12-piece orchestra and everything. You're like, I don't really think I'll have it better than like right now.
20-piece orchestra for this one because Sweet John Goldberg, who I hope will watch this, was have to have it. But it's so cool. Like so many of these educational institutions have the means of like, if you are somebody who wants to produce, and with new works at Emerson, they were like, anybody watching at home, there are so many of these schools that really facilitate these spaces for you to create work that you're passionate about, as well as give you these incredible, like where else when I'm 20 is somebody going to make a costume for me from scratch?
Right. No, it's great. There are so many resources at Emerson. I was part of this organization called Kidding Around, which is theater for young audiences. That's specifically for theater for young audiences, and I would coordinate between schools and different interactive activities that we could have kids do before or after the performances, educational opportunities, things like that. And so that was one of my big, I love kids and I love introducing them to theater, and I've worked with them a lot. So that was one of the things that I felt passionate about that I wanted to do in school. And so like Emerson allowed me to pursue that as well, which is pretty awesome.
We love arts education here.
We do.
So, and then one of the first things I remember about when I met you, and you probably don't remember this, is it was like our first, for anybody who doesn't know, Emerson does a big MT meeting at the beginning of the year. And like, literally you walked in the room and all these people were like, that's the girl that played Dorothy at North Shore. It was like, everybody was like, that's Dorothy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure if this picture is from when you did it at Muni or North Shore, but
this was Muni. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And is this one also Muni?
This one is North Shore.
Amazing.
You can't tell. They're 2 different wigs. How could you possibly know? That one, I think they were 3 years apart.
Got it. And so that was like your first, not your first necessarily, but this breaking into this regional theater scene.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who didn't really know. I mean, I knew about like ACT, but the Bay Area is kind of separate from that whole other, like, we have our like Bay Area theater contracts with Equity, and then there's this whole world of regional theater and all
Yeah.
of, like the Muni and North Shore and like there's so many I can't possibly name them all. But can you speak a little bit about moving into that world and working in those first like professional jobs?
Yeah. Yeah, this one was in my sophomore year of school. And another great thing about Emerson, I'm saying a lot about Emerson, but one of the great things is that they really encouraged us to audition. Not, they don't want us missing school, but if it was feasible and you could manage to go, they would encourage it. And so I ended up, because Boston is close to New York, I ended up going to a lot of regional auditions and New York auditions when I was in school, and this was one of the first ones that I went to. I think this one was local, and so I went to a local call, which if anyone out there is thinking of auditioning, not now, but in the future, maybe consider going to a local call, maybe not the one that's in New York, because there's so many people in New York, but the way that you can really shine, I think, is by going to the actual where the theater is located. They hire local people. They'll have a local call, and you can go and have a little bit more time there. So that's what I did for North Shore. But that was my first, that was my first Equity contract where I got my Equity card, and it was a lot. I Dorothy is a Dorothy is a big role, and I wasn't expecting everybody, in the show, it's their job. And for me, still being in college, I was kind of like, this is just fun. This is like, this is something that I get to do over the summer. But for these people, it was their job, and it was their work and how they got paid. And so I was able to kind of take that, and I hope rise to the occasion of reforming my opinion that this is work. This is it should be enjoyable, but it was definitely actually a lot of work and memorization, and the rehearsal process is so short. With North Shore, it was 2 weeks, but with Muni, it was, I want to say, like, I think 7 days.
Really?
They're very short. They have very short contracts, and the stage at Muni, it's 11,000, and so it's giant, and so they can only fill it for a week. And so the rehearsal process is usually like somewhere around a week, and then the show runs for a week, and that's pretty much it. You get one technical rehearsal, which is where you throw all the elements in, and then you're off to the races and opening. But it was really good to have that first experience in college, while I still had kind of like this love. I still have a love for it, but it was definitely like a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed type of thing. And I met all these people who were like, no, this is my job, this is what I do. And it made me even more determined to get to that place where it was going to be constantly what I did for a living.
That's amazing. Just like rolling back to like this idea of, because I think when we are training in high school or in college or doing any kind of like community local theater, generally rehearsal periods are pretty long. Like at Emerson, we would rehearse for like 2 months. A lot of community theaters here rehearse for like 3 months, 2 months. So how do you, just for your own process, like how do you go from, okay, I have all of this material to conquer, and I now have a week? I mean, at Mutiny, I guess you had a bit of an advantage because you'd already played Dorothy. Even North Shore, you had it.
No, I mean, I'm really bad at memorization. I'm real. Any of my friends and anybody who is in my class will tell you that as well. I constantly forgot lyrics and lines, and so I actually for the first Wizard of Oz, I had my family completely run lines with me every single night. I usually read through the script once, just not saying any of my lines, just read through it in my head. But then after that, I take it kind of just scene by scene. I was given, Amelia Broom told me one time to go from back of the show to the front, memorization wise, because a lot of times what people end up doing is start at the beginning, and then by the end of the show, it's like a little bit fuzzier, like as far as memorization goes. So she was like, you know, you can break it up. You don't have to go from like one, you know, from the start to finish. And so sometimes I would just go pick a scene, and pick a scene here and have my family go through it with me, so that it wasn't all in a row. And so I knew it really well because I would be able to be like, oh, this is the scene that where the scarecrow is. This is the scene, and it didn't matter if it was in sequence. That's personally what helped me, just in terms of really memorizing, and being able to know exactly what my lines were at every point, and getting more confident as a player.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because then somebody can be like, okay, we're, you know, I think a lot of the times too, we have the benefit of like rehearsing in order, but
Yeah,
shorter period.
you don't rehearse in order. Yeah, you really don't. Sometimes, I mean, at different theaters, they'll have you do one scene, and then you'll jump to a completely different scene because you have people that are ready to work with you at that moment. So you'll do scene work in Act 2, and then at the end of the day, you'll go and learn the music for Act 1. Like it's all over the place. So I usually don't learn a script in order. I usually kind of take it piece by piece. There was another show that I did that was a 2-person show. So it was all monologues, and songs. And it was a 2-hour-long show. And so I was speaking most of the time. If I wasn't speaking, but someone, you know, my partner was, but if he wasn't speaking, it was definitely my turn to speak. So I also walking around doing something active while I memorize, that helps me a lot. And being able to have my blocking before you know, really like honing in on things is helpful for me. But just being active in any way, either walking around my apartment, you know, sometimes I'll go on the treadmill and memorize stuff, as well. That usually helps me to be active.
Oh, so interesting. It's so interesting how everybody's brain works. Um,
Yeah.
so then you did all of that fabulous work. Muni was after college, right?
He was after college, a year after I got out. Yeah.
Right. So you had that fabulous experience, graduated from Emerson, did the work at the Muni, and you also went to Asia, correct? With later on with on Classic. So share a fabulous picture from that. It's just looking gorgeous with the huge harp right behind you.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was with the Orchestra Japan, which is basically like the most amazing, dedicated musicians. And it was in this giant concert hall, and basically they would broadcast the movie, like all these Disney movies, behind us on a screen, and we would sing with this live orchestra Disney songs, which is just like everybody's dream come true. Certainly my dream come true. So we got to sing some princess songs. There's Pocahontas songs. There, Toy Story, Moana. Like it was really really awesome. And to have that live sound behind you, like 60 pieces. Like I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was wild.
Totally. Well, also, what was it like being in, you know, a country where you don't speak the language and you're bringing, you know, having that first like travel experience? Have you been to Asia before you went on tour?
No, never. No, I hadn't been to Asia. It was wonderful. I mean, the people are so kind. There was after the show, they would line up. We would the group of us. There were 8 singers, and they would ask us to do a meet and greet, and the line that people stood in, it like circled around the block, just not even like for any sort of communication, just like they would say thank you and shake our hands. And that was what they would do, just to express like gratitude and thanks. And they have such a different appreciation of music and art. I think there would always be, after the song ended, whatever song it was, there would be a couple seconds of silence before they started to clap, because they just wanted to give it that kind of reverence, and that it let it settle. It's such a wonderful and beautiful culture, and the people are so nice and appreciative, and it was great. It was awesome too that this thing that I had grown up with also had really impacted and touched many people in Japan, and they love Disney music just as much as I did. It was great.
Incredible. That's so awesome. What a cool experience to have. And like, it's true that like the music transcends language,
Yeah, for sure.
cultural differences. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then you were back in the city for a while. And I also, another distinct Danielle Bowen memory I have is right before I moved back home, we had coffee and you told me that you were going on the road with a certain show.
Yes.
Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Yes. I just finished with them this year, but yeah, I started last year on the road with them for their tour.
Amazing. And so before I share some fabulous pictures of that, can you talk a little bit about your track and you covering a bunch of different roles, as well as you have your track and then you also would go on for other tracks. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So I was in the female ensemble, and I played two small roles, and basically would do things, in the back, filled in for little here and there cameo parts. But then I was understudying Carol, as well as Cynthia, and as well as, fun fact, the mom. I was also understudying her. So I had these three tracks that I had to learn in addition to my tracks that I was on for every night. And so sometimes somebody would call out because they were sick or they had a vacation day, something like that. And there were two of us covering those roles. So my friend Eliza and each of us would get a call, and he would tell us, our stage manager would tell us which track we were going on for that night. Sometimes we had a couple days notice, and then sometimes we had like 2 hours notice. There was one time I was scared there was an injury on stage, and I almost was put on mid-show, which didn't happen, which I'm really thankful for, but it does happen, and I'm, I was prepared to go on, but it definitely, it did not happen that day. But yeah, so that's what would happen. We get a call, and we have our own wigs, we have our own costumes for those particular roles that we cover, and we that was basically it. We'd go on for whatever role that our stage manager determined we were going on for. So that's me.
This is you in for Cynthia, right?
Yes, Cynthia Wild. Yeah, it was so fun. Oh man.
Then,
and sometimes you would get to play them for, like, if somebody was out for a while because of illness, you would play them for maybe a couple days, sometimes a week, and it was really fun because we didn't have a ton of rehearsal time. We were on the road. We were going to like a different city every couple days. So we did not have a ton of rehearsal time. So that was a lot of kind of drive on my part and on, the other understudies' parts, learning your lines, watching the show every night so that you could see. I think before I went on for Carol, I had one rehearsal.
really?
Yeah.
And
so
here you are as Carol.
yeah, you can't see it in that picture, but I am freaking out. But yeah, that was right before I went on for the first time. But that was really special because my whole family, that was a planned on. So we knew that the woman who was going on who's leading the show in Beautiful, she had it planned out. So I actually knew a couple weeks in advance that I was going on for Carol. So my whole family got to fly out, my boyfriend, my sister. It was really awesome.
That's amazing. Those are so, I mean, I just love seeing this and watching you thrive. I want to I think one of the things that's so interesting about Beautiful is that as an actor, it's already challenging enough to play a role like Dorothy, right? That's like so iconic in the eyes of so many people and like everybody's seen The Wizard of Oz. But then I feel like when you're playing somebody who's alive right now in a show,
Yeah.
there has to be this other layer of like wanting to do it justice and wanting to do or like, and not to be like no pressure, Danielle, but if you could talk a little bit about like how was your approach any different or how was it the same in the way you approached it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it was the same in learning, in kind of getting the mechanics of it down before being able to like actually dive into stuff. But the amount of like research that I did for Carol and Cynthia both, as far as just watching and listening and trying to not copy because you don't want to, I didn't want to try and copy anyone, but trying to emulate them in a way. That's something that I've never had to do before because I've always been able to have the script, kind of take my own approach to it, but this was a little different in terms of being really kind of observatory of Carole King on YouTube, her albums, just listening to, I remember once we were on like a 5-hour bus ride and I think I listened to Tapestry probably like 6 or 7 times just on repeat, just trying to like get the intonations of her voice, the way that she says certain things, things like that. We had a dialect coach come in and help us with Brooklyn dialect. So things like that. So it was a little more technical, I think. And there was less time. So having to kind of to watch the people, the leads who were doing it every night, that was also incredibly helpful. But yeah, just a lot of watching and observing. That was what I what I did.
Totally. Yeah. To backpedal a little bit, can you talk a little bit about your audition process for this show? Because I know that this is the first time you went out on tour with them, but it's not the first time you were in for an audition. No. And I think that was something that like I, as a young person, didn't know that people would get called in. Like sometimes you get called in for a Broadway show and they're not even casting. They're just they're checking people out. So can you talk a little bit about your full journey with Beautiful?
Yeah, I auditioned for them when I was a senior in college, and they called me back for Carol, and so I went in a couple times for Carol, did the material and stuff, and then didn't hear anything. Went back in one more time a couple years later, and then 4 years went by since the first time I had auditioned for them, and my agent didn't submit me. I went to an open call, an EPA. So I went in by myself on my own accord, and luckily they were actually looking for people, and I did Beautiful for my audition, which was bold. But I did it, and then they gave me a call back with the Carol stuff and the Cynthia stuff. And then I came back a third time and they had me do, I think it was probably like 50 pages of stuff. It was like 3 Carol songs, a Cynthia song, the mom sides, Cynthia sides, Carol sides, Betty sides that I ended up playing, and Marilyn songs. So yeah, it was a lot of stuff. I locked myself in a practice room for a good long time, for many hours before that final callback, and then I got a call about a week later, which was really, it was honestly a very cool full circle moment, because I've loved that show since I saw it for the first time on Broadway, 6 years ago probably. And yeah, and just having auditioned for it in school and everything, and then being able to do it now, it was awesome. It was so cool.
Totally. That's so interesting. Like how the life works in funny ways.
It does, yeah.
You never know when it's
Yeah,
happening.
right. Yeah. And somebody that I wasn't super confident, like I went in college and probably presented a very different Carol than I did now, just because of my, 4 years. It's not a ton of time, but it's, some time for growth and development.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it definitely, it just because it doesn't work out, the first time for auditions. It's always, I think it's always good to just be seen by people and to remember that it might come back around. You never know.
Totally, like getting back up and putting yourself out there. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And to circle back even more, we talked a little bit at the very beginning about some of the crazy jobs you've had.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I think it's important that, like we all know that, the survival job is real. And right now it's all that a lot of us have because this is a crazy time. So if you have any good survival job stories, and then also if you want to talk a little bit about the amazing volunteer work that you've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, some of the jobs that I babysat. I am a Broadway tour guide, so I give tours of the Broadway theaters. I was a dog walker interviewer, not just a dog walker interviewer. So I interviewed the people who were walking the dogs. I was a baby singer, like I sang at babies' parties, basically, like birthday parties. It was just it's a whole bunch of stuff. But it gave me these wild stories that I was able to then kind of weave into this through line and this show that I then developed. And it was super fun. And I'm not going to say like every moment of a survival job is enjoyable, but at the end of the day, I think any part that you can bring into your acting from your outside experiences makes you a better actor, and a better performer. And so yeah, it's just some of the don't totally dismiss side jobs as something that won't help you in any way, because I do think that some of my survival jobs have just led me to be a more empathetic human overall. And so then in my acting, I hope that shines through.
Totally.
Yeah. And then my volunteer work, I've just been doing some volunteer work in the current situation that all of us are in. It's this organization called Invisible Hands, and it's mostly based on the East Coast in the greater New York area. I know they're trying to expand, but it's basically a website and a delivery service that pairs people in need, elderly, immunocompromised people that can't leave their homes. They can get groceries, prescriptions, dry cleaning, that sort of stuff delivered to them by a volunteer who's healthy, and you can do a contactless delivery for them. So I've been on both sides. I fill out the forms and talk to people over the phone. Met a lot of interesting people that way. And I've also done the delivery side, where I go to the grocery store and then, drop off the groceries or whatever it is for people. And it's a good way to, help out. And I'm certainly just a little bored myself. So being able to do something and feel kind of productive at this time. And, there's a lot of darkness going on. So it's nice.
I think it speaks to the person that you are, that this tour ended and one of the first things you do is you go home and you go, how am I going to help people? And it's just, that's what we need to be doing right now. We need to be with each other. It's just you being here today means so much to us, and continuing to have these conversations. And you know, still getting to be a part of your community. Because I think one of the things that's so difficult right now is for actors and everybody, it's just we're all disconnected. Nobody can be, it's in this industry where we're so used to being literally on top of each other, like we're all sardines all the
Completely.
time.
Right.
It's hard to not have that, you know, to have that element missing. So
Taken away. Yeah. Yeah.
that in community with people, I think, is so fabulous. You are so fabulous. Thank you for being here today, Danielle.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you for allowing me to put on makeup for the first time in 3 months.
I love it. I'm gonna invite Rena back in as we're wrapping it on up. So just Danielle, I've been asking all of our Q&A friends, do you have any final parting advice to any of our friends watching at home who are young actors who are looking to stay inspired right now and to keep keep working on what they want to do? Do you have any advice to people, our friends?
Yeah, I mean, I think just allowing yourself to this sounds so simple, but do something every day that fills you up. That's maybe even not in a performing way, but for me, I've been watercoloring most days, but just something either artistic or something productive that you feel like can give you a little bit of a sense of self, because I do feel like we can be lost, and sometimes my days, I don't know where they go, but having like one thing that I feel accomplished about, even if it's 5 minutes, can kind of make my day. And so anything that kind of feels productive or invigorates you in some way, I think that's what I'd have to say.
That's lovely. Thank you. And just so you all know, we have fabulous, if you're looking for something and need to get inspired, we have all these amazing virtual programs happening that you can check out. They've been filling my cup. This has been filling my cup every week, getting to connect with other artists, watching the live from the living rooms. There's so much amazing content being produced now that you can access, like from the Sondheim concert to, you know, local theaters, everything in between. And just thank you, Danielle. This has been so lovely.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We really are so grateful for your time and for sharing your journey with us. And we know that you have inspired some future artists, so very much. Stay well and safe in New York.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
All right. Have a great afternoon, evening in New York.
Thank you.
You're wrapping up there.